2004, long time ago, yes, sure. For me, just a skip in time. Yeah, I got to visit Houston Space Flight Center at the invitation of our good friend Slick. And he's a geologist who actually was working for NASA, so that makes him a lunologist or something, I don't know. But he was studying lunar samples and various things like that, comparing them with actual geological samples from here on good old Earth. Good late. Bring a note?
No. Well, actually, here it is.
And they took me in there along with Jose Alvarez and a few other people, and it was very, very interesting tour of the Houston Space Flight Center. They actually took us in to see the moon samples, the moon rocks themselves. They had to, I hate to tell you this, it's true, it's so embarrassing. They dressed me in this duck suit with the whole thing for the hat, for the hair, and they actually vacuumed my beard. They said to me, you could never tell what living things might be in there. You contaminate the lunar samples, you see. Mind you, the lunar samples are all sealed behind glass and perspex and acrylics and whatnot. But it was a wonderful, wonderful experience, really. They cleansed me with moving air and the whole business, and turned me around the cylinder, and I marched out the other side with this funny suit and the slippers and whole business. And went over to a big container of moon samples, very small samples, but quite a variety of them. It was in a big sealed plastic container like this, and on the wall they had 00.00 in red LEDs. I sort of wondered what that was all about, but I found out very soon. There were also two key switches inside of it, each one of which took a different key, see? And I went over and I looked at the case, and they said, oh, stand back, Mr. Randi. And I stood back appropriately and obediently. Said, well, what's going to come out of here is just nitrogen, but it may make you cough if you take a big breath of it. I said, okay. And they went over, and two of them had to have their own individual keys to turn to activate the lock. You see, they turned it, and they went and opened up, and the nitrogen, I guess, came out. I didn't notice it, and I saw moon rocks in front of me. So I innocently and somewhat slyly asked, could I pick one up? And they said, oh yes, go right ahead. And I reached down and I picked one out, gloves on, of course, gloves, and didn't want to contaminate them. And I looked at the minute I did this, those red numbers changed. That was a scale, a very accurate scale, weighing down to tenths of a gram, or maybe hundredths of a gram in this case, I'm not sure, that registered whether something had been taken out of it, you see, in case a magician came by. Or some other kind of person of subterfugeous nature. And I looked at it, and I turned it over, and I put it back, and it came back to 00.00. I was appropriately impressed with that. Anyway, I got to handle other ones on gloves, but inside-out latex gloves that I put my arms into, and I handled big chunks of moon rocks. It was pretty damn exciting, I'll tell you. I was holding on to pieces of the moon, not pieces of this Earth. Pieces of the moon. That great men had gone out there into space to retain, or to gauge and let load on the spaceship, of course, and brought all the way back to Earth. Damn, that's something else. We went off this Earth to the moon, 250,000 miles away, took it around a few times, landed, took off again with rock samples, and brought them back to Earth. Now, what can be more exciting than an adventure like that? Anyway, at that point, a gentleman, after I got out of the duck suit and the whole thing, and a gentleman came over to me, little Asian gentleman. He introduced himself as Edward Liu, L-U, and he said, Mr. Randi, I had a good idea, and I was just talking it over with my colleagues here. We thought it'd be a great idea. How would you like to do the first magic trick in space? And I said, well, I'm not quite equipped. And he said, no, you won't go up. You'll go up, and you'll stay back on Earth, and we'll do it between Earth and outer space, you see. That sounds like a Jim Dandy idea. And I went back to the JRF and waited around until I got a phone call, and pretty soon I got a note from Ed Liu saying, we're going to call you on Wednesday because I'll be up there, at that time, and we'll give you a call from space. And I said, fine. And they said, however, we weren't able to cover it the same way that we had planned originally. They were planning to have a split screen video from the space shuttle, the space lab, I should say, video from there, and me at the JREF sitting at a table in the library there, doing my part of the trick, and Ed Blue up there doing his part of the trick. They planned to do it that way, but then there was a problem with the launch there. They had to keep the cameras, the video cameras, out in space. They had to keep them going to see if there were any bits of space junk floating around. That was a critical moment for them. And I said, well, by all means, you won't give up any security system or anything. You'll do it your way, and I'll arrange something else. So what I did is I got in some reporters from the local newspaper, the Miami Herald, I think it was. I got them into the library, sitting around as witnesses, and I set up our video system, and we turned that on, put it on tripod, turned it on, and we recorded it from our end, and they recorded it from Ed Lou's end. Now, I couldn't see him at the time, but I was in contact via an audio connection on a conference phone. So we got in place, and sure enough, right on the nose. They are on time with NASA. That's one thing. You got to be sure you're on time, otherwise you fall in the ocean or something like that. And so they were on time, and the phone rang, and I heard on the other end, "This is Mission Control." You don't hear that often. Mission Control doesn't exactly call you in the middle of the day. I understand we're going to make connection with astronaut Ed Lou. I said, that's correct, I believe so. I said, all right, the next voice you'll hear will be of Ed Lou. And Ed came on and said, how are you, the whole thing. And then we started to do video thing on both ends. And from then on, you can see the action that took place here. Now remember, these are two videos that are edited together, but in perfect time synchronization there. I mean, there's no gap in there, or omissions, or anything like that. But it's just a little awkward in a couple of places. Now, Ed was shameless, as you'll see. He was out in outer space, and he was weightless, and he was doing things, you know, throwing things in the air, doing all these shameless things that astronauts tend to do. But I forgive him for it, because he's a natural showman, I guess, and a charming gentleman, I think you'll agree with me. And the big problem, I will tell you, is after the trick was over, when he came back to Earth, literally, came back to Earth, and was wandering around in NASA there, everyone buttonholed him, said, Ed, how did you do that card trick? And I didn't do the card trick. I just did what he told me to do, and he did the card trick. But how did you do it? I have no idea. Haunted by it. Well, Ed has now left NASA, in case you didn't know it. He's in private practice now. Oh, yes, he left some time ago. And very satisfied with the work he did. And we were very satisfied to do the first card trick in space, a le voilà.